Hi, and welcome to In Real Life once again. This is our first episode in 2021. So we'll wish you a happy new year. Myself and Sasha here. Morning, Sasha.
Morning, Pete, and happy new year, everybody.
Funny, I was ringing out Happy New Year with a degree of conviction up until, well, a couple of days ago. So Merry Christmas, I wasn't quite convinced about, because I wasn't sure it was going to be Merry Christmas. I was pretty confident in Happy New Year, but we suddenly find ourselves in lockdown once again. So we think, okay, here we go again. It's an odd time, isn't it, Sasha?
Yeah, a mix of emotions, isn't it?
I think it's a very odd. Again, it's just that sense of hope rising, and then what we're doing. Here we go into lockdown. Get ourselves ready for it. And if you're watching this from outside the UK, then you might not be aware, but here in the UK, we're being placed into lockdown again. Well, in England for at least 7 weeks. Probably going to be similar around the whole of the UK. So we're just coming to terms with that reality. This is lockdown number 3. With a degree of hope contained within it because of the vaccine being rolled out. And actually, Sasha, you've had your first dose of vaccine, haven't you?
Yeah, I did. The trust that I work for have done, if you like, we're going through the first batch. So that's 65 or older and patient-facing, or those who are classed as extremely clinically vulnerable. Unfortunately, I find myself in that category. So yeah, at first one of the obviously the Pfizer vaccine, and yeah, so had that one, and then due to have the other one on the 18th, but with the news with regards to now the change of plan, that won't be happening. So I don't quite know when the second one is, when it's on its way, but very grateful, very grateful.
So we are grateful for the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine alongside the Pfizer one, and also pleased to have been able to support somebody who played a key role in the development opportunity for that vaccine to be rolled out across the country. So as a member of Heaven in Healthcare, so we feel that we've been sort of able to support that particular individual and in the role that they played. So that's something we're celebrating. In fact, it's getting rolled out, so it gives a slightly different feel to the overall. But I do think it's, for the nation at the moment, it's quite a challenging moment, I think, in terms of mood and mentality and injuries. I think people get themselves ready for it, but I think it's with all the hope that was arising, it's sort of, again, you have to almost regain your hope once again, don't you?
No, absolutely. It's obviously, I think it's a mixed bag, isn't it? That you understand the need for it, and actually there's a relief almost. That has happened, national lockdown has happened, but then it's not a relief for others for various reasons, of socioeconomic reasons. But that sense of it kind of needs to happen with regards to looking at the NHS. Our colleagues and friends who are working, especially in ITU or A&E and ITU, the front line from that point of view, and the stress and strain. The NHS hasn't stopped all year. It's now nearly a year, and I can only try and imagine what must be like to have faced that in an acute setting, have gone through a little bit of a lull, but not getting rid of it completely. Haven't been COVID patients the whole time, and then having, as you say, to then muster up or somehow muster up the energy and the motivation and the enthusiasm and the hope. And because intrinsically, you go into this sort of work because it's more a vocation rather than a job, you're drawing on those sorts of resources, but they are finite. And that sense of, we know that we have infinite resources, but it's being able to access that at a time when your hope may be just hitting the floor. And how can we help people do that, I think, is our colleagues, folk listening to this who are working in healthcare at this time.
I think the infinite resources of Christianity, the resources of heaven, how do we deploy those at this moment in time? And I think it's as needed now as ever, if not more. I think it's now's a great time to be engaged in this great mission we have of Heaven in Healthcare, of releasing the resources of heaven into our health world, for the benefit of all. And so it's a big mission to be on. And you were talking about the analogy of the Second World War, and I was chatting to my wife Kim about, because my both my parents grew up during the Second World War. I think yours did as well, was it, Sasha?
Yeah, my father. Yeah, my father certainly. My mum, yes, just towards the end.
And I was thinking, because they actually endured, well, the war was almost 6 years long, but almost they had sort of 4 years, really, 5 years, where the constant threat from the Germans, invasion and bombing, and then the flying bombs and all sorts of. My parents lived in London, so I thought, wow, actually, they went through this for a long time. Now they didn't have the lockdown of community that we had, but they had that constant threat, and I think, well. And somebody like Winston Churchill, who my parents absolutely adored Winston Churchill, and I was thinking, so I was reflecting on that. I thought that guy managed to keep hope alive in the nation, didn't that? That was I always thought was an example of brilliant leadership of people. He faced reality. Yeah. He said, we will never give up. We'll fight them on. I won't do the accent. He probably won't do us any favors, but fight them on the beaches. It's just that sense of we're going to win this. We will win. When it looked like, how are we going to win? We're all on our own here. But actually, then the resources started to come in, and so I think it's one of those times. I think, right, reset, regain, and we have to trust in good leadership in the government. Keep praying for the government. Very difficult decisions they're making at the moment. You can always question the timings of it here and there and stuff like that. But I think, well, it's a tough job. So keep praying for the government. And pray for wisdom, and pray for the logistics of the rollout of particularly the new Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, that because it doesn't need the storage that the Pfizer vaccine does, to get millions of doses of that going out every week. I think every week we'll be gaining something like 2 million vaccinations. Well, that's a great thought.
Yeah, it is. I've actually had a few messages from people that I'm necessarily been in contact with for a long time, and a lot of them actually are Christians, and they're asking questions about the vaccine, and I'm pointing them in the correct direction, if you like. But one in particular asked me how I felt about it, and so I responded. It was a Facebook post, so I'll read my response, and it's probably the easiest way to do it. So it says this: I was asked how I feel about the vaccine. I feel grateful towards all those who have worked on this since April. I feel immensely thankful to those who chose to take part in the trials and the elements of risk that they will have weighed up alongside the benefits for us all. I feel heartened that the Oxford vaccine, developed for a not-for-profit basis, will be able to be more widely distributed to poorer and developing parts of the world due to its easier storage. I feel hopeful that this time next year, we will be living in the benefit of all that has been achieved by the science and healthcare community as they have worked together globally to find solutions. I feel excited that what appears to be a catastrophic socioeconomic global event has exponentially accelerated advances, which could lead to the cure to other illnesses and diseases that have killed and continue to devastate the lives of millions of people. But I feel hopeful, not because of the vaccines alone, but because the most precious thing that we get to protect and guard is our own heart and the choice to trust. And I think the underlying reason that person was asking me was fear, uncertainty, and wanting to maybe speak to someone that might have an idea. And it's interesting. I felt just to respond with, when you ask me how I feel, then overwhelmingly there's gratitude, thankfulness, there's hopefulness, there's trust. But quite interestingly, that very last paragraph about maintaining and guarding our hearts and the trust, for me personally, I felt a slight erosion on that after the announcement about the change in the scheduling for the vaccines. And I thought that's really interesting because I think probably for the first time, for me personally, I felt like, okay, I don't know if I trust you on this one. And I had this little sort of side conversation going on in my head. And I thought, hang on a minute. Oh, I can see where you're coming from. That doesn't look like heaven or sound like heaven. It's not wrong to have thoughts. It's quite right to think around things, when you've got a situation in front of you with regards to when you think you're going to get your next vaccine and are you going to be protected. But anyway, it was just a very interesting exercise of what are you going to listen to? What are you going to take note of? and how are you going to guard your heart? It took a couple of days of sorting that out, and I'm now kind of back in that place of, yeah, absolutely, guard your heart.
It just come to my mind, because we're called to love the world, love not just our friends, but love our neighbours, love even our enemies. But actually, the degree of the content of that love, it says this, doesn't it? It says, love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love has a very powerful character to it, that it will keep on going. It doesn't give up. It will keep trusting. And I think that's great. What you do there is that's just a choice to trust the world, to love the world. We are called to love the world. And so I think it's a powerful force. It's part of our Christian armory, is this ability to say, you know what, I'm going to keep loving no matter what, because that's what trust is an outcome of that. And then I love this. I love it. Verse 8 says, love never fails. Yeah. That is, so why do we do this? Because actually, ultimately, love wins. Is that great phrase? Love wins. Love never fails. If you follow that course, ultimately it will be victorious. And so yeah, I think it's just being honest. It's like on the Eastgate. I was commended by so many people for last Sunday's Eastgate broadcast, which actually we weren't able to do as we had intended because of actually coronavirus issues affecting some of our staff members. So and people said to me, "Have you had a good Christmas?" And I had to say, "No, not really, was it?" I'm not sure. Just if we look back in the catalogue of history, I won't regard 2020 as one of the good Christmases. It was rough. It was tough. It was, I think, being able to be honest about that sort of stuff, rather than the sort of polite Christian response, "Oh yeah, wonderful. It's all wonderful." No, it's not all wonderful at the moment. But what the Bible says, it very clearly, isn't it? It says, "Be thankful in all circumstances." Yeah. Not for them all, but actually there's a thankful heart. Then it also goes on to say, pray continuously, and we need to come on to that, and be joyful always. So that's the sort of thing we're looking for at the moment, is that right, let's thankful, joyful, and prayerful. And we need to actually, we were just talking about this before we came online, Sash and I, about the need to be praying into this situation, taking our responsibility, praying continuously, with the confidence and trust in God that actually things will happen as we pray, and that this will turn around, and not to give up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's the Philippians and the 1 Thessalonians, isn't it, about the rejoicing? I think for Thessalonians, I've narrowed it down to rejoice, pray, thank, repeat. Rejoice, pray, thank, repeat. And that sense of praying, I wonder if somehow we're never going to see the full effect of our prayers if we look at it individually. We can, in terms of, we can pray for someone or something and we can see something happen. But I'm just wondering if we've stepped back a little bit with regards to what we believe to be true about how powerful it is that when we pray, because actually we're joining with God's heart and his intention, the culture of heaven, his will, his desire, and so again, back to that sort of whole thing about World War II, there was the World War II, which consisted of lots of different skirmishes, fights, battles all along the way. And we know that Christians were praying, and there are stories of specific things that happened, turns of events, weather patterns changing. There's lots of stories that people are able to say, we prayed into this and this changed. And those small changes turned the course of history and the course of events. Yeah. And I think sometimes it's wise to see it in terms of the battles in front of us, and then they have the bigger picture, that those small battles, if you like, the skirmishes and the individual things that are almost a sense of what God lays on your heart to pray forms the bigger picture. And it's not done in isolation. Around the world, there are people praying.
It's interesting, just using the Second World War analogy again, particularly in London and around the southeast and stuff like that. There was blackout, basically, that people weren't allowed to have light shining out through the windows of their houses. That had to be black them out. And the reason for that was that would guide enemy aircraft and bombers onto their target. So I remember the stories about air raid wardens. Remember Dad's Army? What was his name?
Got that line out.
That miserable character there, but portrayed as a miserable character. But my granddad used to do that. He used to wander around. He was part of the Home Guard, but he used to actually not that. But and just everybody can play their part by actually restricting some of their liberty. Do you see what I mean? Well, I can shine my light. Well, if you do that, then you give the enemy a chance. And so I think just this sense of understanding we're in something massive as a whole nation, or even a global reality, and as an individual, I'm going to put my blackout curtains up. Do you see what I mean? I'm going to restrict myself for the sake of the whole, which is really important. So another verse, actually, both you and I have been meditating on, it's actually our friend Dave Foggan brought this up. And because I've been studying this, because it's funny, I don't know how many times I've read Mark's Gospel, but it was verse, I've read that before, I've not noticed it. So verse 24 in the NIV, I don't know I haven't looked at it in other translations yet, but it says this. Jesus has been busy doing all sorts of stuff. He's been with the crowds and engaged with them. And it says, verse 24, Jesus left that place and went to the vicinity of Tyre. He entered a house and did not want anyone to know it. So he's basically looking for a bit of time out. I need a bit of downtime. Don't let anybody know I'm here. And then it goes on, yet he could not keep his presence secret. And then you get the story of the Syrophoenician woman who comes along and miracles happening. I just thought, he could not keep his presence a secret. Now, you've been meditating on that as well, haven't you? So,
yeah, I was thinking about it in a couple of different ways. I mean, you can take it out if you want to take just that one verse and what we know about what happens when the glory of God shows up. No amount of blackout curtains. We're going to keep that amount of presence, the whole of the God of the universe in that house secret. And there is that sense, isn't it, that we know. And I was thinking about a story recently, actually, that happened where a friend of mine and I were at a cafe and a woman walked. We were talking about him. We were just talking about things that we'd seen God do. And when that happens, the amount of presence that just shows up, like heaven just leans in when you do that. It's so much fun. And this woman was walking past and she stopped dead in front of us, literally stopped. And the basic of the story is she turned to us and she said, I don't know what this is, but I need to sit with you. It's as if she couldn't pass by. So there's that element to it, that sense of presence. He couldn't hide his presence. All of heaven was there. But then when you put it into the context of the whole, take it back to Nazareth and then towards this story, all along the way when you read it says, and people heard and people heard and people heard. So again, it comes back to hope, doesn't it? That sense of if you need something and you become aware that there is a solution, you're going to go after it. And Jesus was that solution. And so, yeah, that him wanting to keep it, or he couldn't hide his presence from those around. There were going to be people looking out for him. They had heard and they were hopeful and they accepted, they were like, okay, this guy, when he shows up, stuff happens. And so, yeah, there's lots of different ways to look at it. It's
I mean, as you look at the story with the Syrophoenician woman, she comes specifically asking for something, and Jesus actually, no, not your time yet. It's like, no, you're not in line for this vaccine right now. You're a bit further down the priority list, because basically this if I'm here for the Jews first of all, which is very interesting. And then, but she doesn't let that go. She says, no, well, okay. But even the dogs get the scraps. Her faith, and she's commended for it. She had this dogged determination to get out of Jesus what was available to her. And it's interesting because on Sunday in the Eastgate Sunday morning message, which I'm chatting with Dave Foggan, that conversation, and you can get that on Eastgate Plus if you want to, just look it up. But just talking about the end of, in Isaiah 60 and 61, it talks about at the right time, God suddenly breaks through. And I've been meditating for that. Well, do we get a part in that right time, or do we just have to sit back, wait fatalistically, when is this all going to be over? Or do we engage with it and say, actually, we can change this time? And I'm firmly convinced that is true. So you had the wedding in Cana, where she said, not my time. Mary said, not taking any notice of that. Syrophoenician woman, she doesn't take any notice of it. You've got Moses, his engagement with God, when God says, I'm going to do this, says, no, you wouldn't. No, you're not going to do that. You've got Abraham with Sodom and Gomorrah, a bit of bargaining going on with God. So there's that sense of Christianity is not a fatalistic belief system. It's not that, they've got a sovereign God and he's in charge of everything, and we're just like robots, drones, doing his will on earth without any say. That's not true. And I think it's time for us to take up our responsibility, rise up. And one of the ways we can do it is prayer. Obviously, we can pray individually, we can pray together, we can worship, we can choose to be thankful, we can choose to be joyful, peaceful, and we can pull on those resources of heaven. I'm convinced that now is the time for us to actually really get quite, I would say, animated and almost, I'm not quite sure what the other word is about it, but I know what I mean, determined. Get my game face on. Yeah, boom, let's make a difference, because I believe we can turn this around, not just with the vaccine, but with our spiritual reality. And now it's needed very much at this moment in time.
Definitely. I get that sense of a phrase of calling it forward. When God created the world, there's the Hebrew word translate when he spoke, it means to shape, to form, and to fashion. I think this drills back down into that sense of hope. If we have the opportunity to pull this forward, we have the opportunity to take a hold of what's available. And I know I mentioned it previous about this thing of being architects of hope. So if you like, an architect takes a hold of something, that someone's vision, and then creates that reality, but doesn't do it in isolation. The architect will employ others, different engineers and things, who are able then to pull that together. So there's a beautiful picture of the body coming together, different gifts, talents, skills, and abilities. But ultimately, the blueprint is heaven. So, we get to create realms and realities for people and situations. And that, I think, she was created, I think the Syrophoenician woman, and also Mary actually was, in Mary's case with the wine, she was creating a reality for those folk at that time. This woman was creating a reality for herself, bringing it forward. And there's an immense power in that sense of, it's that sense of revelation. What are we hearing? So it's not necessarily we're not praying necessarily out of how we know how to pray, but actually that sense of intimacy with him and praying out of that place of revelation of how do we pray? What is it that we're bringing into this? So that's, I think, almost where the prophetic starts to tie into it as well. Almost like I was describing the other day, it's like scaffolding. So it's like prophetic is like platform or the scaffolding in which the apostolic and stuff can start, or the heaven can start manifesting. And so all of that working together, all of us coming together as the different parts of the body in the different shapes and guises, but saying, okay, God, what are you saying about this particular situation now? How can we call it forward? Because we know that you're good. We know that this doesn't look like heaven. I think is exciting, and it's dynamic. It has some life to it, which is good.
Yeah. And just before we sort of start to land this, because Sasha and I love chatting, and we can both chat for England or the UK, I think. So got something exciting actually coming out, Heaven in Healthcare sort of product that's actually been launched, I think today, isn't it, Sasha?
No, it's so it's on Friday.
Right.
Yeah, it's.
Okay, so tell people about it and how they can access it and stuff like that. So
sure. So this is a series of 5 sessions with the potential for a 6th, and it's dreaming with God for healthcare. And quite honestly, right now, you might actually think this is not the time that I could be dreaming. I've got too much to think about. I've got plans that are kind of laid waste. I really don't have the time. But actually what we would say is Heaven and Healthcare would say right now, this is exactly the right time to be dreaming and starting to shape and create and fashion, what it is that you want to see happen. So we're doing this with Janine Mason and herself, and Andy Mason wrote a book on dream culture, and really, really wanting to set that as a foundation. And then the other sessions, all of the sessions are what we call standalone. So as busy professionals, healthcare professionals, people working in the healthcare world, we might not necessarily be able to commit to all 5 or 6 sessions, but you can, because actually what's going to happen is as many as you can get to on Zoom, then great. And then the recordings will be on the Dream Revolution app, under the Heaven and Healthcare tile that's there and the place we've got there. So you will be able to access it. The way at the moment you can access it is via Zoom, or it is via Zoom. So if you've not had an email, then all you need to do is email inquiries@heavenandhealthcare.com, and we will send you the Zoom links for the sessions. So starting on Friday, then the 22nd, it's every other Friday, 22nd, the 5th, and then the 19th of February, March. Yes, 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 and then the 5th of March. And I would just really, really encourage you that actually it's probably, you might not feel like it, but it may well be the thing that is the best thing you could do right now. And the ease of access from the point of view of event, once the first one's done, it will get put onto the Dream Revolution app. Come and join us on a journey and dream.
And on the Dream Revolution app, because there's part of that app now that's actually Heaven in Healthcare section of the app right now, it'll be found in the Heaven in Healthcare section, will it?
Absolutely, yeah. At the moment, we've got, so your messages, Pete, there, we've got core messages, and as soon as the recordings become available, there'll be a section there where you can go. But also, we've got Joy King, who is doing one of our sessions. She has a platform on the Dream Revolution app about dreaming. And again, you could start engaging with that, because that's a dream coaching section. So we're really wanting to create something that people can access, and you can access, but in your time. But come and join us on the journey. It's dreaming for healthcare at a time like this is, because when you're in crisis mode, you have adrenaline and all stuff running through you, and we think when you have adrenaline run through you, your vision gets narrowed. We know that physiologically, your vision gets narrowed, and you sometimes are not able to see the bigger picture. This might be just helpful for us to start seeing bigger picture again throughout this crisis and beyond.
So it'll be on the Dream Revolution app. So again, that's got lots of material on there. And as Sasha said, that's gone to Heaven in Healthcare section. It's got the some of the key messages of Heaven in Healthcare on there. So if you want to target those, you want to introduce other people to Heaven in Healthcare, then the apps are very, very accessible. It's all free content there. And then the Zoom, if you want to be on the live session, then we can email a link if you email into us at inquiries@heavenandhealthcare.com. Well, Sasha, that's been a great chat, and so happy New Year to you, and trust you'll have a great day. And we've got stuff, and because there was some stuff broadcast over the Christmas period as well. So your interview with Eni is also up on the YouTube channel and stuff like that. So good. Okay, so we'll call that a day, and otherwise we could keep on talking for a long time. But we'll be back with In Real Life next week, and hopefully having a guest talking with us. We're just about to line that up, so we'll let you know then. Okay, have a good week.